there was a clip that had been posted on an account that I follow, and it's, one of the pundits talking about some things that are happening in the more conservative states regarding, the abortion bans. Obviously, in Florida, we have our own situation. I want to say we have a 6-week ban in place, right? I think that went into effect when all of those new kind of pieces of legislation went into effect. But in other places, they have all-out bans, or they're trying to, but they're taking it one step further in some places. I'm going to play a clip. Hopefully you guys can hear it.
An abortion ban in Tennessee, so you can't get one in Tennessee anymore. You will need to travel out of state. But Tennessee's Republican Attorney General now says he intends to effectively follow you out of state to get your medical records to see if you got an abortion somewhere else, even in a state where it's legal. That's the Tennessean tonight. And oh, look, it's also in Kentucky. Tonight in the Louisville Courier-Journal, the Kentucky Attorney General wants Kentuckians' out-of-state abortion records to be available to authorities. Oh, it's not just Tennessee, it's also Kentucky. Oh, and look, here it is in Arkansas, too.
19 states that have already implemented some sort of abortion ban now want to take it one step further, and they want to be able to subpoena your medical records should you go and seek treatment elsewhere.
Yeah, it's whacked.
Handmaid's Tale, anyone?
It's whacked.
How insane is this, Len? Like, I'm absolutely blown that any American would be okay with this level of invasion of privacy, this level of imposing of will.
Oh, it's a HIPAA violation.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But is it? I mean, they seem to have absolutely no problem putting this down on paper and saying this is what we're going for.
To what end? To what end? Are they going to press charges? Are they going to, I guess if someone knew that someone left the state for an abortion and they press charges against that person, they're going to try and subpoena the record.
You know that they can, though. Like, that's all part of the legislation in most of these states is fining people who help assist individuals attain an abortion. That could be your Uber driver. That could be, a person at a doctor's office who pointed you in a different direction. So, yeah, they are trying to criminalize this to a different level. They actually just put a teenager away. She was 17. Her mother's in her 40s. Her mother got her abortion pills online. She was in her 3rd trimester. That's not acceptable.
No.
That's not acceptable. And then they disposed of the remains. I mean, not only is that unacceptable for so many reasons, but you could have killed your daughter.
Yeah.
Too. Do you know what I'm saying? And they got a hold of their private Facebook messages. That was what the DA or the attorney in that state built their case on, was private Facebook messages between a mother and an underage daughter, a 17-year-old daughter, which you would think the mother would have say or control over what you were able to access via social media communication from their child. But I think they're both going to do some jail time. I know the daughter is now for sure going to do some jail time. I am completely, even as a person who is pro-choice, not here for that.
No. This country is very, very
hypocritical.
Hypocritical, divided. It's like, do you want science and biology or do you want theology and religion? Which is it?
But Len,
it's like, you see it. We talked about this a couple weeks ago about how some of these very religious areas have been raising children who are now becoming of age and
generation,
starting to take over, local government and state government. And so, the separation of religion and state is no longer happening because these policies are clearly religiously driven. Because that's always been the fight with abortion. Mm-hmm. It's always been pro-life, pro-choice.
And
the pro-lifers are predominantly religious.
For sure. I don't understand, though, is, Len, most of the people that support legislation like this are also really big on, small government and autonomy and they don't want, government overreach. Like most of the people that support things like this, in my mind, I hate to generalize, but we're also, anti-vaxxers, we're really mad at mask mandates. And it's like, so how can you be upset at somebody telling you to cover your mouth? You know what I mean? But you're okay with the government literally controlling what is happening inside of another human being. Like, that is so wild. Like, me coughing and possibly giving you COVID is something for you to be concerned about, right? Because this is something that can spread. Just, I can't infect you with my baby. You understand what I'm saying? Like, whether that baby comes into the world or not, that is literally on my shoulders. But at the end of the day, this is solely controlled, created, and all of these things by the body that it's in. We are a host. These are literally like parasites. I hate to say that because babies are a blessing, but if you think about it just from like a biological standpoint, for a good amount of the time that they're inside of there, they absolutely need their mother. They don't survive without
36 weeks.
They're a parasite for 36 weeks. Blessing. Babies are a blessing. But like, if you just think about it from a medical, a scientific, a biological standpoint, they need the host.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, to tell a woman that she plays no role in any of it is just moronic.
This country is very, very
hypocritical.
Hypocritical, divided. It's like, do you want science and biology or do you want theology and religion? It's which is it?
But Len,
it's like, you see it. We talked about this a couple weeks ago about how some of these very religious areas have been raising children who are now becoming of age and starting to take over, local government and state government. And so, the separation of religion and state is no longer happening because these policies are clearly religiously driven, because that's always been the fight with abortion. It's always been pro-life, pro-choice. And the pro-lifers are predominantly religious.
For sure. But the irony is, again, there's so much more to even that story. If you go back to when the evangelical, churches of the South in particular pivoted their focus to this particular issue,
well,
and why it happened.
Still there.
Well, they are, because that's the thing that, galvanized their base. That's the thing that has given them power, and that's the thing that has also given them control over political candidates. You don't get our support, you don't win the South unless you do this. And it has kept, everybody kind of indebted and everybody in need of each other. And it's scary, but I just don't see how anybody can be okay with this. Like, bro, how is the writing not on the wall, guys?
You go to a county in Kentucky, there's cities that you can't drink in. So if you go to the next county and get drunk, are they going to arrest you in the city you live in because you have a dry city?
But do you realize that this is almost like having extradition? Like,
yes.
It's so crazy to me because it's just like, I hate to reference this, but it's
and
so
where does
real.
It drop off? I mean, if you move to the other state for 6 months and set up residency, are you no longer subject to charges if you move back?
The fact that we're even having this conversation is too, like, to have to even try to process this or make sense of it is not okay, especially when you're talking about women's health. Like, this isn't, again, it's so crazy to me. We are not harming anybody else, right? Like, all we are trying to do is have control over our own bodies. And the fact that you can be criminalized for that is so wild. And this what's even more frightening is if this religious element continues to, dig its roots deeper and deeper, there's so many other things that are on the table. Like, you're talking about fertility. A lot of these people don't believe in fertility treatments. A lot of these people don't believe in, IVF and or surrogacy. Like, They feel like if God didn't bless you with a baby, you don't deserve one, you know? And it's unfortunate because you're not taking into consideration all the things we talked about in our last podcast, right? Like environmental factors, the food that we consume. You think, first of all, infertility has been an issue for always. Women have just, it's so stigmatized that, you know, nobody has felt comfortable talking about it. And we've finally gotten into a space where people are sharing. And that's, again, one of the benefits and the blessings of social media, right? It just allows people to find each other and communicate. And then that kind of gets disseminated into the broader, you know, community. So people, I think, are hearing about it more, but it's always been an issue.
Is there a point during a pregnancy where, you know, people who are pro-choice can say, okay, after this point, you have to put your child up for adoption? Do you know what I mean? Like, they're everybody's setting different limits. The county or states are banning it completely. Some are setting 6 weeks. Some are setting 12 weeks. Whatever the case may be, first trimester, second trimester. At what point, you know, if someone came out with a realistic, because you've heard so many different things. You know, at some point you have to say, okay, if you're more than 16 weeks, you have to, you know, unless you're gonna die because you're carrying that baby, you got to carry that baby.